Welcome to our second episode of Meddling Talks. My name is Nadia Chumi. We're all just so excited to be back here having another conversation with you about health and wellness. So excited to be back here with you, Dr. Kabongo,
Yeah.
and this time joined with one of your colleagues,
Mhm.
Prav. So nice to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So before we get back into a conversation, picking up where we left off, why don't we start with you, Prav, and just introduce you and talk a little bit more about the work you do? I'm curious to know how you got into the work that you're doing as a nurse practitioner.
Okay. I'm Prav Dhaliwal. I'm a nurse practitioner. So my background is nursing. I started my nursing career during my bachelor's working as a bedside nurse for 10 years, which is a very hard job. After about 5 years, I wanted to do something different. I knew this was not something I could do forever. So I went back to school and did my master's at UBC and wanted to go into teaching because I always wanted to be a teacher.
Right.
As a child, I wanted to be a teacher. So I'm like, I wanted to get paid better. So let's go into nursing and start teaching. And I loved that job. I'm still teaching. It's been 17 years now. So, but at about the 10-year mark, I decided I need to do something more. So I went into work with a friend of mine. She had a refugee clinic. So I worked with refugees, and this was during COVID. And what really inspired me to do nurse practitioner was when I was watching them suffer and they couldn't get a hold of a doctor because the system was set up in a way that it was not covered under any health authority. It was under the federals. And so I would do home visits, but I was limited to what I can do. I can't prescribe, I can't diagnose, I can't treat. I knew the problem, but I just couldn't, my scope of practice didn't allow me to move on with the care. So it was a lot of gaps in communication because I would have to document everything and then wait for a doctor, which was hard to get. As we know, we have a shortage of doctors already, and doctors to work with refugees require a lot of commitment because the refugees we were caring for didn't speak any English. That was a gap in care. I decided I needed to do more. So I went back to school again and started to do my NP schooling. And then I needed to do my residency. That's how I came along. I met Dr. Kabongo. And then I've been with him since then. I didn't have the guts to leave.
Yeah.
So is this what you thought it would be like?
It's way more. It's honestly a really rewarding career. And even when I teach my students now, I say you want to go into nursing, you want to move on, and whether it's leadership, whether it's becoming a nurse practitioner, can make such a difference. It's everything I imagine it to be. You're talking to your patients, you're teaching them on a daily basis. And for me, especially, it's very rewarding because I'm working with my community that I know, have low literacy levels, have language barriers. And I can relate to everything they're telling me. So I'm taking advantage of my education and the opportunities I've been given to give back to community.
Wow. So it is deeply rewarding.
It's very rewarding.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We're going to spend a little bit of time teaching. Well, both of you actually are going to be spending some time teaching over the course of this conversation. And I'm excited to hear and learn more myself because I do have some questions. I think we're going to pick it up where we left off, where we were talking about homesteadication.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping, Dr. Kabongo, you can start us off by going a little bit deeper into that concept of food as medicine.
Well, this is a very important concept, as you've just said it. Call it like it's like a third pillar of our movement that we are starting now, called Homesteadication, which is just application of principle of homesteading. So it's a combination of two words: homesteading, a word that is actually known in common English, and medication. Combination makes homesteadication. We have three pillars. The first one, we believe that your home, you have to make it your first clinic. And then your kitchen to become your first pharmacy. And then your food to be your first medicine. Because the environment in which we live, this is where we think we should become responsible of our own health. Not only relying on the doctor. When you go to the doctor, is giving you medications, and then you just think that the only thing that is going to treat you is medication. We don't believe that in homesteadication principle. We think the body, if you put it in good in good conditions, it will heal by itself by giving it right food, real food, because nowadays We don't have real food.
Mhm.
Much of the food we eat are man-made. I'm talking about the real food. You give it real food, clean water, good rest, good exercise, managing stress. We don't need to come to the doctor. Yeah. So that's why we think that in homesteadication, your home, the environment in which you live, should be your clinic. Make your home your clinic, your kitchen your pharmacy. Because the food you're cooking, we believe that this is almost just like, making up medication that will help you.
Mhm.
Because we believe that food is medication, which is the third pillar of our movement.
And this is not a new concept. There is a history when we talk about food as medicine. Can you talk more about that so people don't think that this is something, this is not some new idea or some new
Yes.
concept?
Oh, exactly. The word has been word since creation. Everything we have existed before. We just need to reshape them differently. I've been a family physician for 14 years. Patients really like medication. They like medication and rely on them, forgetting many other things that can be done to keep them healthy. And us, as family doctors, we end up becoming just managers of chronic diseases. You're just coming there. I don't know how Prav feel.
No,
I've been working with Prav for 6 years, but I just feel like really we become like just managers of chronic diseases. Refill medication, refill. So I would like to see my patients healing. Stop taking medications. 'Cause look, medications come with a lot of side effects. Apart from the fact that it takes your money, yes. And then you take them, sometimes you give medication and then you have side effect. You have to give the second medication to counterbalance the first side effect. And then you put the third one.
Yeah.
Before you know, they start interacting.
Yeah.
So that's why we think that practicing natural medicine can bring us to actually even overcome the crisis we're having now. Why do we put all our emphasis on just trying to cure diseases that are there? We can put our emphasis on managing our life, on prevention. If we teach people how to eat well, to avoid a lot of sugar, how to exercise, how to control the weight, I'm telling you, we'll be sitting up here reading newspapers. I'm telling you, which is good.
Yeah, and it's part of homesteadication is, in primary care. So primary care isn't about managing chronic diseases. It's about promoting health and illness prevention. So with this initiative, we're promoting that aspect of it's what's always been there, right? Homegrown foods, looking into kitchen cabinets and seeing what is there that you can utilize to optimize your health, right? What kind of diseases you can prevent by, what type of foods you consume, how you cook those foods, what practices you need to adapt to. Living in Canada, we are always on the go. We are always working. We're always under stress. And I think what happened is people forgot to take care of themselves. By the time their symptoms have gone very far-fetched, now they're relying on medications, where in the first place, that could have been prevented, right? And we always, in our practice, we try to, when we ask questions, we try to ask some of those key questions. Sometimes it's a 5-minute conversation. What's your diet like, right? Are you taking supplements? Do you drink alcohol? Do you smoke, right? We're trying to look at risk factors. And at the same time, they're like, we just want our medication. Leave us alone, right? And then there are opportunities where they want to know more. So we do take up on those opportunities. This initiative is very important because I think we need to start teaching families that your, preventative health, instead of grabbing pills, look into your kitchen cabinets, look into your gardens, what's homegrown, how you can make these foods and feel whole, holistic again. Very empowering.
Prav, can you paint a picture for us of the kind of patients that you see, your patient makeup, especially as we're talking about their diets? What are they eating and how are they eating?
So the patients I see here, 90% of them are Punjabi. right? So they're Indian ethnicity. I'm starting to see more of Congolese, Somalian, and African patients as well. These patients are families. They're young families. There are a lot of pregnant moms I see. I do a lot of well child visits. And then I see a lot of elderly. So I have both spectrums. And when I'm working with young families, my goal is to educate more rather than say, oh, I see your cholesterol high, let's start you on a statin, right? So it's about their diets. And because I know what they eat at home, so where our diets are mainly like, curries and roti, and I know it's very carbohydrate rich, right, diets. And a lot of people that have immigrated here, they like to practice those same diets as they were back home, right? So when we are talking going back to India and back home, the diets they used to consume were homegrown vegetables, fresh milk from the cows, not pasteurized. They used to work farming, and whatever they ate got utilized, right? They sweat it out. So their levels of cholesterol were not high. Obesity was not a concern, right? Whereas now we're using those same practices, but we're not exercising to that level. And they fail to recognize that some of these foods have been processed. They're not homegrown anymore. They're not from your backyard garden. The milk is pasteurized. They forget that. I'm spending a lot of time educating, right? So, for example, I had a patient whose cholesterol was really high. The patient started to already make a case for themselves and said, I eat clean, I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke, I barely eat fast food, I'm eating homegrown, my wife cooks all the meals for me. And I started asking questions like, how much milk do you drink? I drink a lot of milk. What % milk do you drink? I drink homogenized milk. Do you go to the gym? No. Well, then there's your number one problem. Stop your milk or cut down to 2%, then 1%, then skip. Then we talk about, okay, what does your wife cook with? What type of oils is she using? Are you using a lot of excess fats in your cooking? So then we start and break down those things, and that's when the real teaching comes. It takes a lot of time, and now I start referring a lot of patients to Canada Food Guide, Diabetes Canada, to look for resources and education centers, because it takes a lot of time to educate. And a lot of times the resources are not there in Punjabi. But now on HealthLink, there's a lot of resources in Punjabi. Now the problem is, a lot of our families and patients I deal with don't have access to computers and internet, or don't know how to utilize them. So that's another barrier for accessibility, right?
Yeah.
A lot of...
If I can just get to what Pravin said, time is a factor. Yeah. So if I can link this to some of the problems that we're going through in family medicine, I think we talked about this in the first podcast. We are paid by what we call fee-for-service.
Yeah.
For fee-for-service means you need to see X number of patients to be paid Y amount of money. So for you to cover this, look, we are living in one of the most expensive cities in the world, Vancouver. So for you to pay your overhead, you need to see numbers. This is how we end up, sometimes compromising quality. Tell me, how can you see 50 patients and really advise them on how to eat properly?
It's a lot of work.
And then, exactly. So we end up having like 10 minutes. So in 10 minutes, you need to see your patients, discover what they have as a problem, diagnose them, prescribe, and make your notes. It's really, there's just no way you can do that properly. So that's why we were alluding to other ways of compensation, like whereby they give you a pool of patients. They say you'll be managing their health. If the patients are not sick, they're not coming to see you. So you're emphasizing more on the prevention, so that when they are not sick, don't come.
To make opportunity.
Exactly.
That's the key thing. So when for example, when I do my vaccinations with the 4 to 6-year-old, I know after that vaccination's done, that child is not coming to me for a couple of years because the parents don't feel like they need to be vaccinated. And if the child is doing well, they don't need to come, but it's sick. So I always make a point to say, try to bring them in at least once a year to get an annual checkup, right? That's an opportunity we take for growth and development, eating habits, practices, behavioral changes, right? Et cetera. So it is very time consuming, but we try to take every opportunity to educate. Going back to your question on how many patients, 90% of my patients are probably vegetarian.
I
So
think
a big problem we're having, talking about education, sometimes I find myself responding to what they say insane. You keep repeating yourself you say the same thing. Look, many of the problem we're dealing here with, as Prof said, roughly 90% of our patients have Punjabi origin. Most of them, they tend to be vegetarian. And we know that Indians, they tend to have that, most of the time they tend to have the genes of developing diabetes. And you find out you're having many patients having the same condition, and you need to repeat yourself over and over. That's why I said, why can't we record this in a format where we can direct our patients to listening to these things at their own pace? They can go back, listen to the same advice we give them in the clinic. So this is one of the ideas that came up behind this podcast, so that they can go and listen, because we'll be having as well like short videos educating patients on how to manage their diabetes, how to start exercise, how to balance your vegetarian meal, how to do this and that. So this is one of the reasons as well why we started what we're doing today.
I think, along those lines, and going deeper then into the conversation on vegetarianism.
Yeah.
You just mentioned, Dr. Kabongo, what you're seeing with the patients, the idea, even putting them in the same sentence seems interesting, vegetarianism and diabetes. It seems interesting because you would think vegetarianism, oh no, that, you wouldn't have to deal with those conditions. Either one of you can start us off and go a little bit deeper into this, but what is vegetarianism?
Okay. So
Boss.
vegetarianism is, there's the various types of vegetarianism. So there are people that will consume just plant-based meals. They're vegans, right? So they will have no dairy, no eggs, no meat products. Then there are vegetarians like myself who will consume dairy. And so they're lacto-vegetarians, can take dairy, plant-based meals, but no meat, no eggs, right? And then there's lacto-ovo, which will take dairy and egg product and plant-based meals. Or there can be just those that take egg and plant-based, but no dairy. So we're all a little bit flexible here and there. And this is more decided on their personal opinion, their tolerance. Some people can be lactose intolerant, or they don't do well with dairy and they just cut out dairy altogether. It can be a personal choice, a religious choice. It can be, something that they're growing up with.
Yeah.
For myself, I can say it's not a religious choice. I was brought up that way, right? So my mind, when it comes to meat, and eating meat, I get nauseous. I can cook meat. I don't have a problem with it. I can touch it. I just can't consume it. Many people will do it for religious reasons. Accessibility is an issue. Affordability is an issue, right? Other chronic conditions they may have that limits their ability to intake meat. There's lots of reasons why people choose to go vegetarian.
Dr. Kabongo, maybe we can just go a little bit deeper. What makes the vegetarian diet so complicated?
Well, I would say that is kind of one of the myths that people have. If you have a balanced diet, it can be one of the best things to do. The problem is people have to be informed about what comes with vegetarianism. Why? Because plant-based protein or nutrients don't have all the nutrients that are needed to form your protein, for example. Because we know, like, for example, proteins are made of amino acid. Many plant-based proteins, they lack some essential amino acid. Hence, the importance of combining. So Prof just said it. Many of the patients we see, they tend to have repetitive diet. And they don't feel the need to combine different plant from different sources, so you can have different amino acids to complete. Because if you take like protein from plant and protein from animals, protein from animal tend to be more complete. Whereas the one from the plant, you need to combine from different sources to have more complete proteins. That is one of the things. And the other problem as well is some deficiencies, like iron. Yes. We know, for example, by the fact that iron contained in the plant is what we call, in our terms, non-heme iron. And that iron is not readily absorbable. For it to be absorbable, you need to combine it with vitamin C. Hence the importance of combination once again. Yes. For example, you eat your salad. If you don't put to take like vitamin C, which is contained like in citrus, lemon. Yes. If you don't combine, that iron might not be absorbed. Yes.
And a lot of people don't know this. This is the education we give. When I first started my residency with Dr. Kabongo, I was noticing I was coming across consistent lab values of low iron. And I was like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And when I started teaching them that, when are you taking iron? So many people were just taking it with their meals. And iron is supposed to be taken on an empty stomach so it doesn't compete with anything. And with vitamin C. So when that, and they had no clue, no one had taken the time to teach them that, right? So these little bits do matter. And when someone is vegetarian, it's the diabetes component comes in because they're not getting all the nutrients they need. And like Dr. Kabongo said, because they don't know where to get the different food groups, which plants will have what types of vitamins, minerals, the proteins they need to be complete. So they're consistently eating the same foods, cooking it the same way. With vegetarians, they feel the need to over carbohydrate. When they're consuming a large amount of carbohydrates, those are sugars, and that is adding to their diabetes.
Yeah.
And vegetarian doesn't mean that they just eat a lot of salads. No, they don't. A lot of vegetarians in our community eat a lot of carbohydrates and very little salads.
I heard this from a friend of mine who, when she switched over to becoming, I think, vegan or vegetarian, I can't remember which one, but she said that her diet became carb heavy, but she started to feel, I think she was like just feeling faint. She just wasn't feeling well. And she realized it was because her iron had gone off a cliff.
Right.
Which is essentially what you're describing.
Exactly. And carbohydrates tend to increase our inflammation in our body, and it brings on the diabetes. Whereas when the whole notion of vegetarian or being vegan started, being a vegan, and if you know you're eating the right foods, it will help you with bringing your cholesterol down. It will help you with bringing your inflammation in your body down, cutting simple sugars. But again, you have to know exactly what you're eating and how you're eating it. People can say they're vegetarian, but if they're not consuming foods the right way and not cooking it the right way, they're in the same boat, right? And they're doing more damage to them. Their inflammation levels going up, their simple sugars are going up, they're not being broken down, and they're getting diagnosed with diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity. If you are eating a lot of different fruits and vegetables, bright colors, and you're cooking it, eating it in salads, soups, and you have it part of your every meal with a very limited portion of carbohydrates, it will work on your body to bring down the inflammation, cut down your fat, increase your protein intake, and help with preventing diabetes, cardiovascular disease. And these are proven research that being a vegan has positive effects with reducing cardiovascular disease, diabetes. But if you eat it the right way, right? Individuals that are vegan have lower levels of cholesterol, right? Lower levels of strokes, lower levels of hypertension, heart attacks, and mental health. So they have, lower levels of depression and anxiety. But again, the big part is how do we get that information out to the community? This is what you need to be eating for iron, because we don't get a lot of iron. Is one thing we don't get. We don't get vitamin B, which is a really big. Today alone, I probably saw 50 patients. Out of those 50, I can tell you 25 of them were vitamin B12 deficiency. Wow. That's a lot. 50% of my patients today, very low in vitamin B12. They don't know what to take. If you're going to go vegetarian, you need to start taking these supplements: iron, vitamin B12, vitamin C, zinc. Zinc helps with the absorption of iron, right? So there's a lot of things that they should be taking in addition to just their diets.
Exactly.
This is a lot of education.
A lot. Because now we are just covering one of the myths. Where people think that vegetarian diet is healthy. No, it is healthy if you do it in the right way. You combine food from different classes. Most of the time, our patients don't know that even being vegetarian, if you just eat same class, for example, if you eat food where you don't have enough proteins, you have lentils, chickpeas. So now you have to combine this with some carb as well. Rice is carb. So if you eat only rice, it's not going to be good. So you have to combine rice and some proteins. We need some good fat. The one that comes like from avocado, taking coconut oil. I'm trying to skip seed oil because of the preservative. Yeah. So the good oil should not be coming from seed. It should be coming from fruit. Like avocado is a fruit.
Yeah.
Coconut, it is a seed. Coconut is a seed, but don't press it the same way. Yeah. If you take olive oil, it is a fruit. So, and when they press it, especially cold press it, don't put any preservative. These are the things we try to avoid by practicing homesteadication. If you grow your own food, of course, you will tell me, you cannot go and grow your own olive to make olives. But at least you can look for olive that is cold pressed, where they didn't put any preservative. I know it's a bit expensive, but health has no price.
Health as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is very important. And then by doing that, you combine, and then combining food, like taking, as we said, food that are rich in vitamin C. Say, for example, you consume green leafy vegetables like kale, spinach. If you don't put vitamin C there, absorption will be less. If you take tea, which is very common after food, so you combine tea with iron, which already is not readily absorbable.
Yes.
So what you end up is what? Iron deficiency anemia. Nadia, I'm telling you, I've never prescribed iron
Like this, people.
like this.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And this is linked to what we're dealing with.
And an interesting thing is, many patients don't mind getting an infusion. Rather than changing their diet, they ask for iron infusion.
Exactly.
And it's a lot of education. You don't qualify. Change your diet. Do this. It could be frustrating, but if you even get one family to change, and I have gotten many to change, that's rewarding, right? So a lot of patients, when you're vegetarianism, will think, okay, I'm not eating meat. Now, where am I going to get my protein source? So like Dr. Kabongo said, lentils, legumes, paneer is our main source of protein. But there are now meat substitutes, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So a lot of people are running to those. Now, those meat substitutes are actually categorized ultra-processed foods, which are actually quite dangerous and more harming to the patients. They are actually directly linked with severe cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer. They're actually considered a carcinogen. So
this is very interesting. I think you're breaking a lot of hearts here.
so a lot of people get addicted to them because they feel like, I don't need to be eating meat because I'm getting this and this tastes better and this tastes exactly like meat. But there's unfortunately, those are categorized ultra processed.
A lot of chemicals put in, a lot of salt, which we tend to avoid. Sometimes they put even extra sugar to enhance the flavor. MSG, this is one of the other things. MSG, this is what is giving flavor. So now people turn to that. They say, oh, this is just veggies. No, they're not like normal veggies you cook by yourself. They ultra processed. They should be avoided. Not only they take money because they're expensive. Very expensive. So not only they take money from out of your pocket, but they leave you some other diseases. They are not really good food to eat.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
Getting rid of that out of our cabinets for anybody who's considering going down that road. It's challenging. What you're describing, there's education needed, even for myself. If I were to adopt that diet to the fullest and follow all the directives, that takes a lot of time.
It's a barrier to becoming a vegan and a struggle for many vegetarianisms because it's hard meal planning. Is to make those balanced meals. Affordability is a huge issue. To actually get the right nutrients, seeds, nuts, food groups can be expensive, right? Grocery prices are really high. Many people, the other day I had a patient and I was educating him about what he should be eating. And he said he gets his meals from the food bank, right? So he can only eat what he gets, right? And that's the case with many diabetic patients as well. So we're working with families not only have low literacy levels, language barriers, immigration population, working in labor jobs, no benefits, affordability is an issue. So I can't expect my patients to say, you need whole grains this, you need to buy this, this is what your plate should look like, right? I sometimes have to work with what they have on their shelves. So I usually say, have rice in moderation. If you're taking 2 scoops, have 1 scoop. If you can substitute with quinoa, the best thing you can do for yourself, right? Rather than white rice, go with brown rice. Consuming 2 rotis every meal come down to 2 rotis in a whole day if you can, right?
Yeah.
So it's about what they already have, and we work with that.
You're trying to get them to ease off.
Exactly. One of
Yes.
the ways, well, to balance. Because if they go for roti is what? This is carbs.
Yeah.
Rice is carb.
Yes.
So if you combine the two, you just end up having too much carbs,
Yes.
which end up giving you what? Diabetes. Yes.
Exactly.
So the best way to do is what? Put in some seeds in that. That way you balance, because they give you some nutrient that we need, like magnesium, like some good fat, some proteins in the seed. Then it can allow you to decrease the carb you take. Yeah. So they're actually talking about like the amount of carb you should be taking. Show me your hand. Can you make a fist like this? So this is basically the size of the rice or whatever you should be taking. Not more than that. The rest you should balance with proteins, like lentils, chickpeas, things like that. Good fat. Like that you feel full. Because one of the problem of vegetarian diet is if you don't have enough proteins, if you don't have enough good fat and fibers, you're hungry in the next minute that comes up. You end up eating again, and it's just like a cycle. Yeah, because you've taken too much carbs, the carbs are easily digestible. Yes. It goes like...
No protein, no muscle mass.
Yes. And then you end up
Another problem.
developing, diabetes, even though you are on plant-based diet. So hence the importance of balancing it. Eat less carbs, good fibers, good fat like avocado, some protein from chickpeas and lentils.
If someone wants to adapt a vegetarian diet, even after hearing all of this and how challenging it is, can they still do it?
Yes, they can. They just have to take the right supplements, right? So one, you're not, carbohydrate heavy, making sure you have enough protein so you're not losing muscle mass. Make sure you're consuming enough, a lot of the cereals we have, fortified cereals with all the stuff that we need, they have that in the cereals. So we, make sure you're taking those foods, making sure you're taking supplements, so zinc, iron, vitamin C, calcium, vitamin D. So you just need to be really on top of your vitamins and minerals in addition to your diet. You can't rely on diet alone, get everything, right?
And what about for people who are, those of us who are meat eaters, and what if we want to, shift our diet and make it so that it is more plant-based? Maybe not go all the way to vegetarianism, but definitely embrace some more of the principles.
Oh yeah, it's feasible. For example, myself, I'm not vegetarian. I'm what we call flexitarian. I'm flexible. So I eat plant-based, mostly plant-based, I would say 90%. And I have my carbs, then my meat, protein. I eat fish, I eat meat. I tend to go for meat that come from the farm, like local farms. That is a good thing to avoid preservative, to avoid hormones, antibiotics, which is another chapter. So we might actually end up having another podcast on that, the preservative that comes in the food. Just to let you know, for example, the food we take up here, European cannot take it. They refuse it. When President Obama was in power, he wanted to go and to bring the food that we consume up here, like especially in America, into Europe. Europeans refused to take it. In the transatlantic treaty, they refuse it. They say, no, it's going to lower our standard of living. Until today, it doesn't go there. So that is another chapter we might need to come up with. The preservative is not only in the meat, even in the food we buy in the shelves. Hence, the idea of homesteadication, to grow your own food.
What does that look like in a practical sense? If you're not a homeowner, living in a condo, even on a limited budget, what does it look like to maybe start small?
Community gardens are established, right? When I go for a walk, I see a lot of community gardens. A lot of schools have participated in those too. So they allowed a certain field space for gardening, and they allow kids to also plant seeds, learn about gardening. And then, when the vegetables, the crop is out, communities can come and actually help themselves, right? So there's a lot of community. You can get quite familiar in your neighborhood. They do have a lot of community gardens. And then also go visit local shops. They actually bring in fruits and vegetables from local growers. So start checking those out. There are opportunities. to incorporate as much as possible. Don't let go of your meats. If if you like and enjoy your meats, you need that. That's your protein, right? But also make sure you're also missing out on other essential things that you can get only from plants. So make sure you're incorporating that as well.
Ultimately, this sounds like it's 50% lifestyle shift, but it's also 50% mindset shift.
Yes.
Oh yeah. The mind is everything. We become what our mind is. Because our mind, what we think, is going to push us to do things that is in our mind. Yeah. Look, what we're dealing up with in primary health care, like family physicians and nurse practitioners, 80 to 90% is lifestyle based. It's linked to lifestyle, food, what we drink, what we eat, how we exercise or not, where we live, how we sleep, and how long. So all of that together gives you 90% of the problems we're solving up here.
Yeah. To transition, it's not going to happen overnight, right? So when you want to have that mindset, many vegans that have, been a vegan for many years, let's say 10 years, they don't mind the food they're eating. They don't care for taste anymore, right? They are happy with their diet. They're happy with their, what they're getting, and they stay on top of their lab work, making sure they have all the, vitamins, minerals, necessary components to remain healthy. So for many people, it is a change, but it's a transition that, it's going to take a lot of time. It's not something that's going to happen, let's say, in 1 year. It's going to take years of practicing, learning, and developing a hobby for cooking, growing items, and learning to garden, and actually enjoying that.
And there's benefit to that.
Yes.
Imagine that exercise. In your view, I don't say that you should not be going to the gym, but imagine working in your own garden.
Yes.
You are really working with the shovel and doing this and that.
Or taking a walk to the community garden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because one principle in Homesteadication is what? We have to be involved in the community.
Yes. And it's
Can
rewarding.
you imagine how lonely people can feel in this country? By the time of sharing, going to the community garden, talking to your neighbor, sharing the seeds, planted this, sharing experiences.
When I first got married, my mother-in-law did that. It was new to me because I never saw that before. My in-laws are farmers. They grow their own garden. Last year we had buckets of tomatoes. We have 2 deep freezers stuffed with tomatoes.
These are real tomatoes.
Real
and
tomatoes.
real tomatoes, and that I'm still using in today's cooking. And they're the perfect tomatoes. And my mom will go and she will go share it with the neighbors. They'll bring whatever they're growing.
They're not like tomatoes that will not rot.
They're large, juicy, and they grow other things too. We have spinach in our garden, and I've used it several times. If you have extended families, get them into gardening if you don't have time. Involve family members that are home. It doesn't have to be, work 9 to 5 and then sit in the garden. Involve others. It's a shared community responsibility.
Exactly. And when you have excess, you can save that.
Yeah.
We're teaching people as well how to preserve food. How you can preserve food. If you produce too much, in lieu of just putting it away, you can preserve it.
Yeah.
And then during the winter, you can use that.
Yeah.
Rather than going for the food that is full of preservative.
Yeah.
That whose name you don't even know.
Yeah.
You don't know. So it's a really good principle that teaches people how to eat food to decrease the chemicals we put in our body. This is bringing us diseases like hypothyroidism.
Yeah.
It destabilizes our hormones. Before we know, we become diabetic. So even cancer come from many of the things that we put in our food. Yes, somebody who has been eating meat. And those people, if they shift to vegetarian lifestyle, there's some process. They have to go slowly.
Yeah.
Because the system is not used to the number of fibers we have in plant-based. So if you just switch completely, you'll be having some trouble, like the gas and abdominal pain. So you need to go progressively.
Very gradual.
Go gradually and drink enough water. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So you don't come up with some abdominal pain, ballooning of your stomach. And then you say, oh, no, it doesn't work. I have to go back to where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So you have to take baby steps.
Yes.
And then you'll be learning progressively how to mix food so it can be beneficial to you.
I think we're going to leave it there. Before we go, I'd love to hear from both of you. Where do you hope the conversation goes next?
I love to talk about this, how vegetarian diets impact adolescents, fetal development, pregnant moms, and what they should be looking at when they're considering pregnancy. And if they have these special diets, again, importance of taking these supplements and what the impact on vegetarianism is on development of kids going forward. I think we can see more education regarding meal planning, introducing maybe recipes, introducing different strategies of cooking.
Yeah.
Salads. A lot of people in my community don't eat mixed salads, right? And a lot of them basically don't know how to make salads. Make great salads, to be honest.
Right.
So take these opportunities to teach. Like when I tell my GERD patients to have smaller meals, they look at me like, what do you mean smaller meals? Am I not going to have my 2 pieces of toast in the morning and then a full sandwich in 2 hours again? It's like, no, instead of that, why don't you have 1 egg in the morning? By 10 o'clock, have a piece of toast, right? Have peanut butter on your toast. The idea is to have actually smaller meals. What does a healthy lunch look like? What does a healthy dinner look like? Living in Canada, we should be able to adapt to different cuisines and learn to cook different cuisines. We are all proud of our own ethnic cooking. A lot of moms will come to me and say, my kids refuse to eat Indian food and my own son refuses to eat Indian food because I've spoiled him with pastas and meat. My goal is to keep Indian food in there. The opposite concern I have with families is that their kids are refusing to eat Indian food because that's all they get, right? So I can see how we can start educating, so changing the platform a little bit and creating awareness.
Just to add on that, education starts at home.
Yes.
Yes. When we are younger, kids, when they are born, they don't have tests as such. They tend to adopt the tastes of our parents.
Yeah.
Just like Prof said, because she grew up in an environment where people were eating the plant-based, so her taste was now fixed to that. So that's why we have to bring children to start loving plant. When I usually listen to mothers, they say, no, my children don't like our food. Like when Mom made her laugh, actually, she was like, no, my children don't like our food. And I was like, but Mom, why do you want to give the Indian food to Canadian kids? They are born here, right? The taste is when they go to fast food.
Yeah.
This is what is really they grow up with.
Now they want that.
Exactly.
Because they're not getting it at home.
True. So the best way to do is to catch them younger.
Yeah.
And children, they learn the best way by looking at us doing things, not talking.
Yeah.
So we have to be there, see it's eating thing. You tell them it is good. You appreciate it. And you give to the child.
Exactly.
Then the child will eat it and he grows like that.
Food is medicine, right? Food helps with growth and development, but it's also about family development, sharing, caring, being together. It can solve a lot of problems. So we start with food. I think that is the best way. Yeah.
Definitely. Sharing is caring, especially in Canada. One of the thing we're dealing with is depression. I've never seen problem of depression like this in my life. One of the reasons is our diet. It is poor in nutrients. We tend to eat alone. We live alone. We don't communicate with our neighbors. Being in that communal garden.
Exactly. And I have my students write papers on malnutrition. One thing they see is patients don't like to eat alone. If we're eating together in a community, in a shared environment, sharing food, that likability is going to go up.
All right.
I think there's so many directions we can go with this next conversation, but for now we'll leave it here. Prof, thank you so much. Thank you for taking time to share your insight. And Dr. Kabongo, thank you so much for your time and for helping us go deeper in this conversation of homesteadication. We're going to leave it there, but of course there'll be another episode of MediLink Talks. So we'd love it if you could follow us online, follow us on social media, and stay tuned for the next conversation. Until then, take care of yourselves.